Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode together with Nick Glimsdal. Hi, Nick. How are you?
I am great. How are you, Greg?
Super happy and super keen to discuss about your latest book. And this is really an outstanding book, The Heart of Service, a blueprint for human-centered AI in customer service. And it was published in August this year, and I really enjoyed reading it. Therefore, before we deep dive into it, thank you very much for this outstanding book.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was a lot of work, but it's been fun to get some of this feedback, including yours on what you've gotten out of it.
Thank you very much. As usual, before we kick off this game, two words related to today's top player, Nick Glimsdal. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. So Nick Limsdahl, I've really throughout my entire life, I've really wanted to focus on the person in front of me, and it has nothing, even when it comes to those last 8 years that I've been at VDS. Where I've only focused on in the last 8 years is the contact center, obviously getting a lot more into AI, as everybody has. But what I do is I design, implement, and support cloud contact center solutions, and now work with a lot of people to finding the right people to implement and design AI as well. But it's not just about that, right? It's about finding the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve, and they'll work backwards to the technology. And I think that shows a lot through the book, The Heart of Service. And I also have got a podcast called Press One for Nick. Been doing that for 5 years now, and just enjoying life and trying to serve the one in front of me.
Thank you very much. And we already have two call to action. The first one is posted podcast and buy the book. You will listen now why you should buy it, but I can assure you it's worth it. Buy it. And the second call to action is please follow Nick's podcast, Press One for Nick. It's a great podcast. I learned a lot from his podcast, and we are all waiting that you are coming back with new episodes, but there are a ton of value added already in the old episodes.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Let's kick off this game. Let's start. The Art of Service, a blueprint for human-centric AI in customer service. Why this book?
Yeah, I was just kind of think of over the last 300 some episodes that I did, and I have a great opportunity to interview all these amazing people in customer service and customer experience. And a lot of them say the same thing in different flavors, and I always like to hear different pitches from other people and ways to make an experience better, or drive efficiencies, or create outcomes. But for me, I really gravitate towards storytelling, and there wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't another book that I could tell on customer service or customer experience that really focused on that. And so really I was selfishly trying to write a book for that I would gravitate towards. And then I wanted to really see it through the consumer's journey. When you think of a C-suite or the CXO, I think it's important in saying, hey, here's 10 reasons why you should do X. However, I want it also to be to maybe the people that don't get all of the awards or the fame. I want it to be the mid managers or the senior mid managers that are going through the process, that are in the middle of the storm, in the muck and the mire of the middle of it, and showing that process. And what that looks like, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And it's a lot of that is change management. A lot of that is just dealing with emotions, or maybe it's the agents that are saying all you're doing is trying to take my job, right? You're trying to implement this AI, and it didn't work in the past, and the pilot failed in the past. So bringing all of that together over an 8-year period was a difficult task indeed. But I took a lot of the things that I've learned over the 8+ years at VDS and the conversation that I've had, and tried to bring different characters into that story.
And I really like the story, this storytelling. There is one company, you will explain what they're doing and what are their goals, Carelio, and Chloe's story that she built up all this amazing journey. What does it take for a leader to design AI initiatives that truly amplify the human element?
Yeah, I think it takes first, it's what are you hoping to achieve? I think when it comes to AI is just this really big buzzword, and it means a lot of things to a lot of people. And so, what are the jobs that you're hoping to solve for? And then working backwards to the specific use cases, and then what are the metrics that you're hoping to achieve with those use cases? So, have clear intentions up front, right? It's um, know that it's not there to just replace humans, it's to support them, it's to create that side by side interaction, and sometimes it replaces them with those mundane tasks that agents don't want to deal with anyways. But start with problems that are worth solving, instead of just having this checklist and saying, the C-suite told me to solve AI. It's measure the impact. It's understand both the consumer and the agent experience. It's constantly looking at what's working and what's not working, and being able to adjust on the fly, and always have it go back to the outcomes. And I think just AI in general, if you want to just turn it on, and kind of reminds me of like the chat bot back in the day, is like there would be so many people that would turn on chatbots because the leadership told them to do it, and then they just didn't implement it the right way, or didn't solve the problem either from the agent or the consumer, and it just added more friction. And so, I think just be very purposeful in what you're doing it, but I think the what you need to do is start doing it, but be willing to take a little bit of that pilot and grow with it, and then learn and adapt and then change moving forward.
What you're saying, it's something that it's really important. We're going into that, and I let you get a sip of water while I am saying why I think it's so important. As we see nowadays, a lot of companies coming to us and trying to sell their technology. It's always the best, the most suitable for us, and it's the solution for everything. But at the end, we really need to solve our internal employees' problems, ensure that we care about the customer needs and solve their problems so that they can achieve their goals. And I really like Carillo Stories. This is the company, you will explain more about that they are struggling as every company outside, because we know that companies are busy with daily business. They need to solve, to work, and now they need to go through this business transformation, AI-based transformation, and it's not easy. And often the companies are falling in these AI traps, like over
Mm.
automation, ignoring agent inputs. And I know that you explained that very well in your book. Let's discuss about that.
Yeah, I think with Chloe, she was just in the middle of the storm, right? She's potentially in the eye of the storm of this tornado, and she's looking around and she sees just the mess. She sees the legacy technology. She sees people not staying with the company. She's seeing company or customers not staying with the company. And so, she knew that there was a better way, and she didn't really know what to do next. She even took a lot of the things that her father had from his restaurant, and said like there is a lot of things you can do on the front end if it comes to personalization. If I knew that, Greg wants cilantro on a specific dish, and he comes in and you're saying, hey, cilantro again, right? And so you're trying to find ways to create that personalization. Um, but she couldn't do it alone, and she had to start by just listening to the front end, and maybe we'll get into that here in a little bit. But she just was not trying to sell a product or sell a solution, but she was trying to say, let me know what your pain points are, like what's going on, and let's talk through these scenarios. And then she had to meet with her leadership. She had to get executive buy-in. They had to build a pilot. And then there was a lot of she had to build a team in that process. She had a lot of naysayers that didn't like what she was doing, and maybe had this past history of issues that did or did not work, and they'd bring all of that emotion with them. And so there was a lot to that process, that she had to deal with. And again, it goes back to that change management and dealing with the human side of that change.
Thank you very much. I think you mentioned one relevant topic, listening before reading, but you mentioned also the restaurant. Chloris is working at Corelius, and her dad as a restaurant. And
Mhm.
for me, was really important, and I highlighted that several times. This sentence: "Serve, don't script." Where
Mm.
does it come from?
Yeah, I think one thing that people can fall into, and I think with the AI trap, is you can over automate everything. And if you don't have the human part of that interaction, then they just become a robot. You might as well just not even have the human part of it. If all you're doing is saying, read this exact script, unless it is something that needs an exact script and you need to say something the exact way. If it's a compliance issue, then yes, right? But if there is a way that you can bring the human along with that journey, and that human has flexibility in that conversation, if it's empathy or if it's hearing what's not being said and asking an additional question, just being present and not trying to solve a problem or interrupt the individual to solve the problem because you are 5 steps ahead of them. You just need to be present sometimes and hear what they're saying and maybe what they're not being said, and then solve those problems. And I think what too many organizations fall into is that over automation process. And the issue with that is that individual, that consumer, doesn't feel known and valued. They just feel like you're just trying to push them on to the next cog down the line, even though you might solve their problem.
I really like that. And now you mentioned that several times. It's about listening to the customer, listening to the employees. And Chloe's story emphasized the importance of listening before leading.
Mm.
And this is the key in every transformation, really being with the human, working with them. What advice would you give to leaders who are struggling getting this buy-in because everybody's trying to solve something different, but they don't get it?
Yeah, I think when it comes to a leader who maybe knows that there is an issue, I would just take an inventory. Like, what do you have today? Yes, you could write a script and say what's working and what's not working and just create a list. And then ultimately, what are the controllables versus the uncontrollables? I think there's things in the journey of the customer or of the agent that you either can't deal with because it's not the process isn't there yet, or maybe the technology doesn't meet your requirements, or maybe compliance just creates a little bit more friction. But from there, listen to that front line. Like, I think the front line needs to has a ton of information. There's some agents there that are there for 20, 30 years, and the managers or leaders or executives have never sat down and listened or gone through the journey of that front line to see what type of knowledge that they had, or never asked them, hey, we're considering this technology. How would this solve your problem? Like, they're always considering the CX side of the business. And so be very purposeful on taking an inventory there. And then, yes, you can talk about technology, but technology shouldn't be led, right? It shouldn't be a first, start with technology and work backwards to the outcomes. It should be the other way around. What are the outcomes that your leadership is trying to change? And I think that if it's another leader, the overall objective of the organization has a plan, an outcome that they're hoping to achieve, and then it's the trickle down effect of what you're measured on. Um, Understand what the leaderships and the peers are being measured on, and then help them succeed by you succeeding as well, which hopefully solves the overall outcome. But if you don't listen to your peers, then they can't help you succeed as well.
I really like that, but let's really double click on that. Chloe's used several tools, and in this case are not AI tools, but are tools, methodologies to be something like, please let me say, the men, or in this case, the women in the middle, linking frontliners with the
Mm.
management and then ensuring that the decision get taken, but then it can be also implemented. Could you please share some tools, or the one that you prefer that Chloe's used to drive this transformation?
Yeah, I think there's I think there's a few of them that she used. I have a whole lot of them in the back of the book, and by all means, I think there's a QR code in certain sections. So depending on which one you're talking about, but there's different indexes. There is the journey. There's assessment tools. Um, There's one that Jamie Boyd had brought in, who's kind of the implementation consultant, and he has his own tools as well. So I won't get into too many of the specifics, but what I would say is like, depending on what you're hoping to achieve, there's always a tool or tools that you should have in your belt that will solve specific problems. If you think of a carpenter always has a tape measure, they have a screwdriver, they have a wrench, and they have different things that solve different problems. I'm not going to go try to slam a 3-inch nail with a wrench. Like, that doesn't that doesn't meet the outcome that I'm hoping to achieve. At least that it won't in the time that I hope it will, that I do it at that time. But there's all sorts of tools inside the toolkit in the back of the book.
Thank you very much. And exactly a reference, and very important for the audience that in the meantime already bought the book. If you go to the end in the appendix, you will find the master toolkit, and there are a lot of interesting links where you can download some scripts, some information, some framework that you can use. Nick, you mentioned often that it's important to measure the impact and to understand and also to track the transformation. And I really like this Carelio AI empowerment, this list of KPIs. Could you please walk us through this list?
Which lists are you talking about?
KPIs to measure the AI impact.
Yeah, I think again, yes, I think efficiencies are good, right? But don't keep it on the efficiencies. Like, yes, first contact resolution is good, but don't just keep it on the first contact resolution. Like, it could also be around empathy, right? It could be around, are you trying to, but is there one KPI or KPIs you want me to dig into?
I can refer, because I know that it's quite difficult for you. You don't know everything by heart.
Yeah, you're good.
You have the AI empowerment index, where you have the list of the first contact resolution, as you mentioned, agent minutes reclaimed, escalation avoidance, sentiment recovery, and time to value. Perhaps let's speak about the last one, if it's okay for you. Time to value. Can you please explain what it is?
Well, I think it's on both the consumer and the agent. I think you can measure the sentiment around the conversation, but also the time to value. If you think of back in, what's on average, like between 6 and 10 different applications are open at one time when you're interacting with the consumer. And so sometimes that you will say, "Hey, Greg, how's the weather in, fill in the blank?" Because you're stalling and you're trying to look at these other applications, the time to value from an agent side is, if somebody says something, let's say you're the consumer, and you say, "I'm looking to find this specific insurance. I know I already have insurance with you guys today, but do you guys provide, life insurance as well?" And it provides a screen pop with the knowledge base in the highlighted section and says, "Nick, make sure you talk to Greg about this. This is what he's hoping to solve for." The time to value there, where I'm not humming and hawing and saying, "How's the weather in a certain city?" I immediately go to the source, because the source comes to me, and I'm solving the problem in the least amount of time for that individual, where I don't have to have small talk. I think sometimes small talk is important, but more often than not, small talk is the filler, because you're not ready to inform them with the knowledge that you're hopefully prepared for.
Thank you very much. I know that we are skipping throughout the chapters, but we have only half an hour to go through them. And there is one topic that for me it's extremely important, and a lot of people are speaking about that, but not a lot of people are really doing that. And it's about ethics and trust in AI. What's your view? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to ethics, like, again, what's the goal with AI? Like, are you trying to be, I mean, when it comes to AI, you need to be transparent. Are you talking to an AI or a bot or not? You could even have fun and be friendly with it and just say, "Hey, this is Betsy the bot," on the front end. But if it's not ethical, is it fair? Is it the right use for AI? Are you accountable to the AI that you put it in? And so are you setting a boundary line, with that? Obviously, um, there's that use case where somebody tried to buy an SUV, and that SUV or that person was talking to the bot, and the bot said, I can't give you to at uh, not much below fair price, but what can I give it to you for? And give me an offer I can't refuse. And the guy said $1. And the bot said, no take backs. Like it's a final, binding offer. And so they had to sell him that SUV because that bot was not trained and or accountable. Um, I think be clear with customers when they're talking to a bot. Obviously, you got to audit if there's any bias in responses, or the outcome that at the end of the interaction, making sure that you protect your customers' data. Um, I think yeah, I think when it comes to ethics, like, with AI or really just anything, yes, you can have it in a slide deck. You can say we are compliant, but get behind what are the details behind that deck, and be very purposeful of how it's designed, and then making sure that it's monitored consistently, to meet the compliance or ethics that you're hoping to achieve.
Thank you very much. Now we
Mm.
are coming to an end of this discussion, but let's put together these two topics. One is you wrote in the book the road ahead, and I often asked, or I always ask about the future. Fast
Mm.
forward in 10 years from now, we are back on this podcast. What we're discussing about?
Woof. 10 years. I think a lot has changed in the last 2.5. What wasn't it 2.5 when ChatGPT came out? So, I can't imagine in 10 years from now, we'll be talking about probably the same thing, but in different themes and maybe different levels. And I touched on it a little bit on the book, but I did an event about a year ago, and I said by 2034, so that was 10 years out. I said, will AI be taking over 51%, so most of the interactions, and I think in the next 10 years that it'll be taking over, I would guess 85 to 90% of all interactions will be handled through AI. And that's considering artificial customer intelligence. That's considering artificial general intelligence, where the question won't be, can AI handle it? It'd be more like, what outcomes should it handle, and is it handling it well? I think when it comes to the role of the role of the human is going to change considerably as well. They're not going to go back to those mundane tasks. They're not going to answer, 50 calls in a day, or, 80 calls in a day. I think it's going to be more about what conversations are the right ones to fit specific expertise. I think when you actually talk to a human being, how you trained on empathy and creativity and being very purposeful with your time. Um, yes, it's going to be around metrics, but I think it's also going to be about, what value did you create along with it? I'm trying to think of, like, is it going to be around trust? Like, going back to that ethics side. Um, how is that consumer protected in that data? I think there's going to be a ton of people that are going to have breaches, some bigger than others. But, I think the companies won't be measured on the flashiest tech. It's going to be the ones that are the most transparent, ethical, and trustworthy, right? Like, um, so I think there's going to be so much exciting things that are going to happen in the next 10 years that I can't even imagine. Are we going to be wearing VR goggles, that instead of big computer screens? I don't know, but I'm excited about where we're headed.
Hopefully not the ones that we are seeing now, but the more simple ones that we can really use the all day. And I think in 10 years you will have, I don't know, the third, fourth edition of this book and perhaps other great books. But now it's about the art of service, where we can find this outstanding book.
Yeah, the best way to go is to go on Amazon I'm sure it'll be in the show notes as well, but go to Amazon and just type in the heart of service. It'll pop up right there. You should be able to see my name, and it's got the heart on the front end with a looks like a computer chip in the middle of it. Um, and that'd be the best way to get it.
Thank you. And what's the best way to contact you?
Find me on LinkedIn. It's usually I'm there consistently. I try to write content either from right now it's about the heart of service and but I always try to keep going and keep writing content and add value there. So by all means, the best way to do that is LinkedIn.
And I know that it's long, but where we can find your podcast, Press One for Nick.
Podcast, you can go on YouTube. You can find it on LinkedIn. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, wherever podcasts are being played. You just search Press One, the number one for Nick, and you should be able to find it. But if you want to find playlists or specific things, YouTube is the best one to go.
Thank you very much. And now we're coming to the last question. Is Nick's golden nugget, it's something that we discussed or something new to leave to the audience with?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to the golden nugget and you're thinking about the buyer or the customer experience, whoever is your buyer, don't stop at go live, right? Focus on continuing to add the same amount of value you did before signature than you did prior. Focus on that customer lifetime value. Focus on that long-term value. Keep proving that you are the right fit, the right solution, the right service, the right product. And then keep people first in that process and making sure that front line stays involved as well.
Thank you very much, Nick, for your time. And to the audience, for today, it's everything. I hope that you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did. I am sure that you will enjoy Nick's book. It's really a great book, The Art of Service. Buy it on Amazon, and you will get a ton of value. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.